Stop right there. Before you grab that bottle of whiskey for your next drink, you need to see this, because what I'm about to reveal will completely change how you look at the whiskey aisle forever. Some of America's most popular whiskey brands are hiding secrets so shocking, so deceptive, and so far from real whiskey that they should be classified as flavored alcohol, not authentic spirits. We're talking about whiskeys made with artificial flavoring, industrial grain alcohol, and additives that are banned in other countries. Meanwhile, the whiskey industry has been playing the ultimate authenticity game, convincing you that their mass-produced, chemically enhanced products are somehow traditional American spirits with heritage and craftsmanship. But here's the truth that Big Whiskey doesn't want you to know. Not all whiskey is created equal. While some brands are literally serving you grain alcohol with artificial flavoring and caramel coloring, others are quietly making real whiskey the way it's supposed to be made, with quality grains, traditional methods, and genuine aging. Today we're exposing the 5 whiskey brands you should never buy, bottles that are fooling millions of American drinkers every single day. But don't worry, I'm not here to ruin whiskey forever. We're also revealing the 5 whiskey brands that are actually worth your money and might remind you what real American whiskey is supposed to taste like. If you've ever wondered why some whiskey tastes artificial, why certain brands give you terrible hangovers, or why expensive bottles sometimes taste worse than cheaper ones, stick around, because what you discover in the next few minutes could save you from years of unknowingly drinking industrial alcohol disguised as America's native spirit. Hey whiskey lovers, welcome back to the channel where we pour out the truth about the spirits industry and serve you the facts about what's really in your glass. I've spent years investigating America's most popular alcohol brands, and let me tell you, the whiskey aisle is one of the most deceptive sections in the entire liquor store. I've analyzed production methods that read like industrial processes, talked to former employees of major distilleries, reviewed TTB reports, and even visited whiskey production facilities to see how these spirits are really made. What I discovered will shock you. The American whiskey industry is built on convincing consumers that their mass-produced, artificially enhanced products are somehow authentic American spirits with tradition and heritage. They've perfected the art of making grain alcohol taste like aged whiskey, making artificial flavors seem natural, and making industrial production appear artisanal, all while charging premium prices for ingredients and methods that cost pennies to produce. Today's video covers the brands you see at every liquor store: Jack Daniel's, Jim Beam, Crown Royal, and many more. We're talking about the bottles that dominate entire shelves, the ones advertised during primetime TV, and yes, even some of the premium brands that charge extra for the same industrial processes wrapped in fancier packaging. But here's the thing, I'm not anti-whiskey. Real American whiskey is an incredible spirit with a rich history and complex flavors when it's made right. The difference is, I want to make sure that when you're sipping whiskey, you're actually getting authentic spirits, not a science experiment designed to taste like whiskey while maximizing profit margins. Ready to discover which whiskey brands are the worst offenders and which ones are actually worth your hard-earned money? Let's uncork the truth about America's whiskey industry. Number 5. Crown Royal. Let's start with Crown Royal, Canada's most famous whiskey export that's fooled Americans into thinking they're drinking premium whiskey when they're actually getting mass-produced grain alcohol with artificial flavoring. What's really inside? Crown Royal is a Canadian whiskey, note the spelling, that's made from a blend of grain whiskeys, including corn, wheat, and rye. But here's the problem. Canadian whiskey regulations allow up to 9.09% of the blend to be non-whiskey additives, including artificial flavoring, caramel coloring, and other flavor enhancers. The blending deception, the Crown Royal markets itself as a premium blend, but it's actually a mixture of neutral grain spirits, basically vodka with small amounts of flavored whiskey. The majority of the liquid in your bottle is industrial grain alcohol that's been artificially flavored to taste like whiskey. The artificial flavor problem: the Canadian regulations allow whiskey producers to add artificial flavoring agents without declaring them on the label. Crown Royal uses these additives to create a consistent flavor profile across millions of bottles, but you're essentially drinking flavored vodka, not authentic whiskey. The caramel coloring issue with Crown Royal gets its distinctive amber color from caramel coloring, E150A, not from natural aging in charred oak barrels. This artificial coloring creates the appearance of aged whiskey without the time, cost, or complexity of actual aging. Why avoid it? Crown Royal represents everything wrong with modern whiskey production: artificial flavoring, industrial methods, and deceptive marketing. You're paying premium prices for grain alcohol with artificial additives, not authentic whiskey with genuine character and complexity. Number 4. Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Fireball isn't really whiskey at all. It's cinnamon-flavored grain alcohol that's been marketed as whiskey to capitalize on the whiskey boom. What's really inside? Fireball contains Canadian whiskey, cinnamon flavoring, and sweeteners, but the whiskey base is neutral grain spirit, essentially vodka, that's been artificially flavored. The cinnamon flavoring is artificial, and the sweeteners mask any whiskey character that might exist. The artificial cinnamon disaster, Fireball's cinnamon flavoring contains propylene glycol, the same chemical used in antifreeze and fog machines. While the FDA considers it safe for consumption, it's an industrial chemical that has no place in authentic spirits. European regulations actually restrict propylene glycol in alcoholic beverages. The sugar overload of Fireball is loaded with artificial sweeteners that mask the harsh taste of cheap grain alcohol. You're essentially drinking cinnamon-flavored vodka with sugar, not whiskey. The sweetness creates an artificial smoothness that hides the poor quality of the base spirit. Why avoid it? Fireball isn't whiskey. It's artificially flavored grain alcohol with industrial chemicals and excessive sweeteners. If you want cinnamon flavor, add real cinnamon to real whiskey. Don't drink antifreeze chemicals disguised as American spirits. Number 3, Jim Beam White Label. Jim Beam White Label is America's best-selling bourbon, but its massive production scale has turned what should be artisanal whiskey into an industrial product with minimal character and maximum profit margins. What's really inside? Jim Beam White Label is technically bourbon, made from corn, wheat, and malted barley, but the industrial production methods, accelerated aging, and massive scale have stripped away most of the character that makes bourbon special. The industrial production problem, Jim Beam produces millions of gallons of whiskey annually using industrial methods that prioritize efficiency over quality. The mash bills are designed for consistency and cost effectiveness, not flavor complexity. You're getting factory-made bourbon, not craft whiskey. The accelerated aging deception. While Jim Beam White Label is aged for 4 years, the legal minimum for straight bourbon, the aging process is accelerated using industrial techniques that don't develop the complex flavors that come from traditional aging. The result is harsh, one-dimensional whiskey with minimal character. Why avoid it? Jim Beam White Label represents the industrialization of American bourbon. While technically meeting the legal definition of bourbon, it's mass-produced, over-filtered, and designed for mixing rather than appreciating. You're getting factory bourbon, not craft whiskey. Number 2, Jack Daniel's Old No. 7. Jack Daniel's is probably America's most recognizable whiskey brand, but behind the iconic square bottle and Tennessee heritage lies a product that's been industrialized beyond recognition. What's really inside? Jack Daniel's Old No. 7 is Tennessee whiskey made from corn, rye, and malted barley. While it follows the basic bourbon recipe, the Lincoln County process, charcoal filtering, and industrial production methods have created a product that prioritizes consistency over character. The Lincoln County process problem. Jack Daniel's filters their whiskey through sugar maple charcoal before aging, which they claim makes it Tennessee whiskey rather than bourbon. But this process actually removes flavor compounds and creates a sanitized one-dimensional spirit that lacks the complexity of traditional whiskey. The industrial scale disaster, Jack Daniel's produces massive quantities of whiskey using industrial methods that prioritize efficiency and consistency over flavor development. The distillery operates more like a chemical plant than a traditional whiskey maker, with computer-controlled processes that eliminate the variables that create character. Why avoid it? Jack Daniel's Old No. 7 represents the triumph of marketing over substance. While technically whiskey, it's been industrialized and sanitized to the point where it lacks the character and complexity that make whiskey worth drinking. You're paying for the brand name and marketing story, not quality whiskey. Number 1, worst, Jameson Irish Whiskey. And the absolute worst whiskey brand is Jameson Irish Whiskey, a product so industrialized and artificially consistent that it's barely recognizable as traditional Irish whiskey. What's really inside? Jameson is a blend of grain whiskey, neutral grain spirits, and pot still whiskey. But the grain whiskey component is essentially flavored vodka, and it makes up the majority of the blend. You're getting mostly neutral grain spirits with a small amount of actual whiskey for flavoring. The grain whiskey deception. The majority of Jameson is grain whiskey, which is made from corn and wheat using column stills that produce neutral grain spirits, essentially vodka. This cheap base spirit is then blended with small amounts of pot still whiskey to create the illusion of authentic Irish whiskey. The triple distillation marketing lied. Jameson markets their triple distillation as a premium process, but triple distillation of grain whiskey just creates pure neutral grain spirits. You're not getting more refined whiskey, you're getting more refined vodka that's been artificially flavored to taste like whiskey. Why it's the worst? Jameson represents the complete industrialization of Irish whiskey. The majority of the liquid is neutral grain spirits, vodka, with artificial flavoring and coloring to create the appearance of whiskey. You're paying whiskey prices for flavored vodka with a small amount of actual whiskey for legal compliance. It's the ultimate triumph of marketing over authenticity, industrial efficiency over craft, and profit margins over quality. Now that we've exposed the worst offenders, let's talk about the whiskey brands that are actually worth your money and represent what American whiskey should be. Number 5, Buffalo Trace. Buffalo Trace represents what American bourbon can be when a distillery prioritizes quality over quantity and maintains traditional production methods. What makes Buffalo Trace different? Buffalo Trace is made using traditional bourbon production methods with a mash bill of corn, rye, and malted barley. The distillery uses copper pot stills, natural fermentation, and traditional aging in charred oak barrels without artificial additives or industrial shortcuts. The traditional production advantage. Buffalo Trace maintains many traditional production methods that larger distilleries have abandoned. They use longer fermentation times, traditional copper stills, and careful barrel selection that creates complex, characterful whiskey rather than industrial consistency. The value proposition to Buffalo Trace offers genuine bourbon quality at a reasonable price point, proving that authentic whiskey doesn't have to be prohibitively expensive. You're getting real bourbon made with traditional methods at a fair price. Why it's worth it? Buffalo Trace proves that American bourbon can be both authentic and accessible. It's made using traditional methods with quality ingredients, creating a whiskey that actually tastes like bourbon should taste: complex, characterful, and genuine. Number 4, Wild Turkey 101. Wild Turkey 101 represents old school American bourbon made the right way, with high proof, traditional methods, and no compromises for mass market appeal. The high proof advantage Wild Turkey 101 is bottled at 101 proof, 50.5% alcohol, which preserves more flavor compounds and character than lower proof whiskeys. The higher alcohol content carries more flavor and creates a more intense, authentic bourbon experience. The traditional production methods Wild Turkey uses traditional bourbon production methods including longer fermentation times, copper pot stills, and careful barrel selection. They don't use industrial shortcuts or artificial additives to create consistency. The aging commitment, Wild Turkey ages their bourbon for 6 to 8 years, significantly longer than the 4-year minimum required for straight bourbon. This extended aging develops complex flavors and smoothness that can't be achieved through artificial means. Why it's excellent? Wild Turkey 101 represents authentic American bourbon made without compromise. The high proof, traditional methods, and extended aging create a whiskey with genuine character and complexity that reflects what bourbon should be. Number 3, Maker's Mark. Maker's Mark has maintained their commitment to traditional bourbon production methods and quality ingredients, creating a consistently excellent whiskey that represents Kentucky bourbon at its best. The wheat recipe difference. Maker's Mark uses wheat instead of rye in their mash bill, creating a softer, more approachable bourbon with distinctive character. This recipe choice reflects traditional Kentucky bourbon making and creates a unique flavor profile. The hand-dipped tradition. Every bottle of Maker's Mark is hand-dipped in red wax, a traditional method that's both functional, protecting the cork, and symbolic of their commitment to craft production methods. The small batch approach of Maker's Mark produces bourbon in relatively small batches, allowing for quality control and attention to detail that's impossible in massive industrial operations. Each batch is carefully monitored and tasted. Why it's superior. Maker's Mark represents traditional Kentucky bourbon making at its finest. The wheat recipe, handcrafted approach, and family ownership create a whiskey that's both distinctive and consistently excellent. Number 2, Woodford Reserve. Woodford Reserve represents the pinnacle of Kentucky bourbon craftsmanship, combining traditional methods with meticulous attention to detail to create exceptional whiskey. The triple distillation excellence. Unlike Jameson's industrial triple distillation, Woodford Reserve uses traditional copper pot stills for triple distillation that creates complexity and refinement rather than neutral spirits. This process develops flavor rather than removing it. The 5 sources of flavor. Woodford Reserve focuses on 5 sources of flavor: grain, water, fermentation, distillation, and maturation. They control each element carefully to create complex, layered whiskey with distinctive character. The maturation excellence. Woodford Reserve ages their bourbon in heavily charred oak barrels with careful monitoring and selection. The maturation process develops complex flavors through time and traditional methods. Why it's nearly perfect. Woodford Reserve represents Kentucky bourbon at its finest. Traditional methods, premium ingredients, and meticulous craftsmanship create a whiskey that showcases what American bourbon can achieve when quality is prioritized over profit. Number 1. Best local craft distilleries. And the best whiskey you can buy isn't from a major brand at all. It's from local craft distilleries that prioritize quality, tradition, and authentic whiskey making over mass production and profit margins. The craft advantage. Local craft distilleries can focus on quality over quantity, using traditional methods and premium ingredients that create distinctive, characterful whiskey. They're not constrained by corporate profit margins or industrial efficiency requirements. The ingredient control. Craft distilleries often source grains locally, use natural water sources, and control every aspect of production from grain to bottle. This control allows them to create unique flavor profiles and maintain quality standards. The traditional methods. Many craft distilleries use traditional production methods that have been abandoned by large producers: longer fermentation times, copper pot stills, natural aging, and hand-selected barrels. The innovation freedom. Craft distilleries can experiment with unique mash bills, aging techniques, and finishing methods that would never be approved by corporate committees. This innovation creates distinctive whiskeys with character and complexity. The transparency. Craft distilleries are typically transparent about their ingredients, methods, and aging processes. You can often visit the distillery, meet the distillers, and see exactly how your whiskey is made. Why they're the best. Local craft distilleries represent everything that's right about American whiskey: traditional methods, quality ingredients, skilled craftsmanship, and passion for the spirit. When you support craft distilleries, you're not just buying whiskey, you're investing in a tradition that prioritizes authenticity over profit, quality over quantity, and craft over industrial efficiency. Bonus section: how to choose better whiskey. 1. Read the label carefully. Look for terms like straight whiskey, bottled in bond, or single barrel, which indicate traditional production methods. Avoid terms like blended or flavored, which often indicate industrial production. 2. Check the proof. Higher proof whiskeys, 90+ proof, often have more character and flavor than lower proof versions. The higher alcohol content preserves more flavor compounds from the production process. 3. Look for age statements. Whiskeys with age statements, 8 years, 12 years, etc., have been aged longer and typically have more complexity than younger whiskeys or those without age statements. 4. Support craft distilleries. Local and craft distilleries often produce higher quality whiskey using traditional methods and premium ingredients. They're worth seeking out and supporting. 5. Avoid artificial additives. Stay away from whiskeys with artificial flavoring, excessive caramel coloring, or other additives. Real whiskey gets its flavor and color from grains and aging, not artificial enhancement. So there you have it, the 5 whiskey brands you should never buy, and the 5 that are actually worth your money. The whiskey aisle doesn't have to be a minefield of industrial spirits and artificial flavoring. You just need to know what to look for and what to avoid. Remember, whiskey is America's native spirit with a rich tradition of craftsmanship and quality. When you choose whiskey made with traditional methods and authentic ingredients, you're not just getting better taste, you're supporting genuine craftsmanship and preserving traditions that have been passed down for generations. The whiskey industry has spent decades convincing consumers that their mass-produced, artificially enhanced products are somehow authentic American spirits. But now you know better. You know which brands are fooling you with grain alcohol and artificial flavoring, and which ones are actually delivering real whiskey made with traditional methods. Every time you choose authentic whiskey over industrial spirits, you're voting with your wallet for better production methods and supporting distilleries that prioritize quality over profit margins. If this video changed how you think about whiskey, smash that that like button and subscribe for more spirits industry exposés. Drop a comment below and let me know which whiskey brand shocked you the most, and what's your go-to whiskey now that you know the truth. Until next time, choose authentic spirits, support craft distilleries, and never settle for industrial alcohol when real whiskey is available. Your taste buds and American whiskey tradition will thank you. If you thought this whiskey investigation was eye-opening, wait until you see our expose on what's really in America's most popular vodka brands. From industrial grain alcohol to artificial additives that have no place in premium spirits. We're revealing the shocking truth about the vodkas millions of Americans drink thinking they're getting quality spirits. Click right here to watch and prepare to never look at the vodka aisle the same way again.